Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this edition of The Comeback Kid. I am your host, Ben Friedel, and alongside me, as always, are Nate Wiggins and Matt Hendrickson. How are you doing, you guys?
I'm good. I had a good weekend. Was part of the leadership team for first year retreat, so I actually did not watch sports this entire weekend, but was able to catch up last night. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing solid. I caught the first half of season 2 of Stranger Things. But also you and me, Ben, spent a lot of time together this Saturday. What did we do? I forgot.
Yes, we did. We ended up trying to go watch the Chelsea match on Saturday morning, but we woke up too early because we were too excited, and we actually ended up watching Liverpool-Huddersfield. But we'll get to that a little bit later. So before we dive into it, guys, I think it's important to let everyone know what this show is about. So every Monday at 9 a.m., we hope to talk about sports and stories that may not get enough attention on major sports networks. This includes Premier League soccer, European soccer, baseball, hockey, and yes, Nate, we, in our agenda today, have allotted specific time to talk about the MLS.
Woohoo! MLS!
So, Matt and I have needed a few weeks to recover from the U.S. men's national team loss, and I think this is the first step toward recovery, I think, is just talking through things together. So I hope that... oh, man, you got a big smile on your face. You're so excited. All right, so let's dive right into the other important things we wanted to talk about. The World Series. Guys, what is going on? It seems like pitching just doesn't exist anymore, and if you just make contact with the ball, you're going to hit it at least 400 feet. God, is this not the most entertaining World Series that you have ever seen?
Yeah, it's the most entertaining World Series I've ever seen. And I'm pretty sure last night, once they got to extra innings, Fox ran out of commercials because
I saw that too.
They were just staying at, they were just showing the highlights or just kind of showing the players walking around in the dugout during the breaks, and I saw on Twitter, I was like, did Fox run out of commercials because nothing was going on? But yeah, this is the most entertaining World Series that I've certainly have ever seen. We came into last night thinking, Game 5, Kershaw versus Keuchel, man, this is going to be a low scoring game, much like Game 1. It's going to be a fast moving game, but boy, were we wrong.
That was probably the polar opposite of what actually happened, right, Matt?
Yeah, definitely. I think I saw that the total game time was 5 hours and 17 minutes. I can almost watch Interstellar twice. And that movie is long. I don't know. This series, is reminding me a lot of the 2002 Angels versus Giants series, where there's a lot of late game heroics, where it's like, whose turn is it now to really carry the team? And so far, I think Yuli Gurriel and Alex Bregman have just been on fire for the Astros.
Yeah, Alex Bregman with the clutch walk-off hit last night off of Kenley Jansen, who for the majority of the regular season was unhittable. However, past couple of games, we've seen Kenley Jansen and other Dodger relievers been hit around a little bit. What do you guys think is the cause of that?
Well, first off, Matt, don't forget about Jose Altuve. He's come up with some huge hits for the Astros in this World Series. But going to the Dodger bullpen, I think that particularly in this series, and you can make an argument throughout the postseason, Dave Roberts has made some very questionable pitching changes, and I think that much like last year where Joe Madden kind of just rolled his Chapman into the ground, I think that Dave Roberts is riding Kenley Jansen and some of the other guys in that bullpen right into the ground because of his poor managerial decisions.
Yeah, I would agree there. And Matt, so I think we also see something similar on Houston's side of things. And the question posed is, with Houston's bullpen situation, can the Astros win a World Series? Because now they are up 3-2 against the Dodgers going back to L.A. Can they win a World Series pretty much without a serviceable bullpen? Because no one has been reliable for them, or at least none of their regular relievers have been reliable.
In a World Series filled with uncertainty, my answer is I don't know. I think, for what you just already pointed it out, but that both teams have had questionable questionable starting pitching, but also taking pitchers out potentially too early. I mean, we've been talking a lot on this show about how pitching is changing around the league and how pitchers just got to be ready to pitch, whether it's starting or relieving. We don't know. But I'm thinking about Game 4. We saw both Charlie Morton and Alex Wood come out earlier than we would have expected. We were thinking Alex Wood was taken out after giving up one hit. Of course, that was a home run to George Springer, but it's one hit. You'd think that, I think it was in the 6th inning that it would be his inning to finish, and then maybe let's see if he goes back out on the 7th, and if he allows another base runner, okay, maybe you start thinking about replacing him. But this is one hit, and pitchers are coming out early, going to shaky bullpens. And I think I would rather have Alex Wood or Charlie Morton finish those innings off and then try to keep going the next inning than just rely on these shaky bullpens.
Yeah, and we've mentioned on previous shows that the dynamics of pitching itself has changed dramatically. I think, and you mentioned the polling of Charlie Morton was an incorrect decision. That was, I believe, the second runner to reach scoring position, and again against him the entire game, he had no walks, 7 strikeouts. He was absolutely, he was, excuse me, he was even more dominant, arguably, than Alex Wood in that game, because Alex Wood had only struck out 2 guys, had walked a few batters. And the second he got into trouble, he went to AJ Hinch, the Astros manager, went to a shaky Astros bullpen. And so it is logical to make that kind of decision if you have arms in your bullpen that you can heavily rely on. But Nate, AJ Hinch's arms, especially guys like Chris Davinsky last night, who has been relatively good, he somewhat ran out of gas last night. And Ken Giles, how bad has Ken Giles been?
Yeah, I believe he got actually pulled from the closer's role, if I do recall
Mid-World
correctly.
Series, no less.
Yeah,
what a time to get pulled from the
crazy.
closer's role.
That's crazy. But I think that what's happening is I think that managers are honestly, they're overthinking these decisions, and they get all like, oh, like the minute that my starting pitcher gets into trouble, oh, we got to take him out, we got to go to the bullpen. And it's like, hold on, like these starting pitchers, they've been doing this all season, So I understand it's the World Series, and I understand that you can't go at the risk of, we can't get down any further than what we already are. But it's like, you got to have some faith. You got to have some trust in your starting pitcher that he can give you 6 innings, 6 or 7 innings, that he can get outs when you need him to get outs, instead of immediately the second he gets into trouble, you pull him out and you go to, like you said, a particularly shaky bullpen. If you had strong arms in the bullpen, that would make a lot of sense. But neither one of these teams right now have really anyone that they can go to that they can rely on to get outs. It's more just, let's pick a guy and let's just hope that he can get outs.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what we're seeing. Yeah, I don't think the Astros have the bullpen. At the same time, they beat the best bullpen in the New York Yankees. So I don't know if the bullpen is going to be enough to keep them from winning this World Series. What I think is a bigger problem is that they're going back to Los Angeles.
Yes, they are going back to Los Angeles for Game 6 and Game 7, and this World Series has been somewhat indicative of the trend of home teams being very, very dominant. We have seen some teams, or the Dodgers took one in Houston, and Houston took one in LA. But prior to the World Series, Houston had not lost a playoff game at home, and so we've really seen the home field advantage be very, very prevalent, and it's going to be interesting to see if the Dodgers are able to take advantage of that and take Game 6 behind the Rich Hill, I believe.
Yeah,
Rich Hill is starting for the Dodgers against Justin Verlander come Game 6. That's going to be a great matchup.
Not only had Houston not lost at home this playoffs until the World Series, they had not been behind for 70 straight innings. I think that says something about home field advantage, and that's something that they lost. So they're going to be going back to LA. Rich Hill versus Justin Verlander. I like to think that Justin Verlander has the tools to get them to win it here and close out the series. He didn't look that way in Game 2, but granted, no one has looked like they've been able to win it alone.
Nate, I have a question for you. Is Game 6 the game that turns Justin Verlander from a great pitcher into a legend?
Well, I think you could make the argument that he already is a legend. I believe he's got 2 no-hitters, right? 2 no-hitters. All those amazing years in Detroit, he won the MVP as a starting pitcher. Like, I think that, even if he goes out and gets shelled in Game 6, I don't think that takes away from Justin Verlander's legacy at all. And honestly, I think he's going to get shelled.
Really?
I came into this World Series saying Dodgers in 7. and I'm sticking to it. Sticking to Dodgers in 7. You know, I know Justin Verlander's been spectacular this postseason, but you know, nothing has gone to plan in this World Series for either team. So I don't think that we can say that, oh, well, Justin Verlander was great during the division series and great during the ALCS, that he's going to come out and give a great performance in Game 6 of the World Series. You know, I think the Dodgers, I think they get it done. They get it done in these next 2 games, and I think the Dodgers bring home the World Series.
Yeah. So the great broadcaster Joe Buck, that is sarcasm, by the way. Said, I believe in Game 4, that his producer, most likely because he most likely doesn't prepare his own notes, his producer prepared notes for him, and he told the public audience that this series has been so crazy, I cannot use any of these notes that I have in front of me. It's just, I need to wing it at this point, because this series, just when you think something is going to go a certain way, you have Kershaw versus Keuchel on the mound. Each does not get out, go beyond the 5th or 6th inning. And it's really, and I think that as chaotic as everything has been, I think it makes it that much more entertaining, though. I think some of the most exciting baseball is when things take the unexpected turn, and I mean, it just is so surprising to me when I'm on social media or whatever, I'm talking with buddies, and they're just like, oh, baseball is boring. Really now? Really? If you watch this series, how could you think baseball is boring? 13-12? Come on now. Come on.
Here, I got a Joe Buck quote for you. This is from last night. I was watching the game in our student lounge. That's Frank's. And this is like, I think, in the 3rd inning or something. And, they're going into commercial break. And Joe Buck says this in reference to Dallas Keuchel. And I quote, "The problem is he gave up 3 runs in the first." So insightful.
Yes. That is basically what happened. And I think the goal of a broadcaster is to, not just summarize things, but to actually contribute to a broadcast. And
we talked a lot about that Saturday night.
We did. We had some friends in your room who didn't know much about baseball. We were basically describing to them how terrible Joe Buck is. But anyways, getting back on track here.
This has turned into the Joe Buck Haters Show.
I'm cool with that.
Anyways, getting back on track. So speaking of the media, actually, I saw that the ESPN Instagram accounts posted right after Game 2 as well as Game 5 that those 2 games, respectively, like the night after, were the best. They posed a question, are these the best games ever of all time? Matt, was Game 5 or Game 2 the best game you have ever seen?
No. My answer is no. I think they've been the most unpredictable games. I think they've been the most crazy games. But to say that something that happened last night is the best game of all time, it's going to take me more time to think about. I always try to look back even further. Like, I think 1975, Reds versus Red Sox with the famous Carlton Fisk. Oh, Pollock, like, basically willing it fair. But that's even just more of a moment. I think, for me, the best game of all time is 2011 Cardinals versus Rangers, Game 6. I think that is starting to get old enough where I can think, you know what, and on a more objective standpoint, that they're down to their last strike twice in that game. And David Freese comes up clutch twice in that game. Angels great, David Freese.
Yes.
I think that is starting to look more like the greatest game that I've ever seen, and potentially the greatest game of all time.
Yeah, I would actually say that, like, last night and Game 2 were, like, probably the 2 greatest baseball games I've ever seen. I mean, just back and forth. One team would take the lead, but, when the Astros went up 12-9 going into the top of the 9th, I was like, man, the Dodgers are going to come back and tie this game, like you just know. And then I actually didn't turn it off for a bit, but I actually went to go work on an essay. Went back to it, and I saw Yasiel Puig rounding the bases, and I was like, of course Yasiel Puig hit a 2-run homer to make it a 1-run game. And so I was like, okay, I might as well watch it. Might as well watch the end of it. And I'm so glad that I watched that game last night, because you guys will talk about 2011, but I think last night was better than 2011. I mean, I'm not a fan of any of these teams, so just watching it as like a baseball fan, it was tremendous. But I don't understand how how Dodgers fans or Astros fans are like even still alive right now, because if the Red Sox win a series like this, I would have had multiple heart attacks.
Oh yes.
Yeah, Nate, I think you make a good point. It's not to say that I won't look down the line and say, hey, that was the greatest game of all time. I'm just not ready to say it yet. I need more time to process what's been going on.
So in my perspective regarding what the greatest game of all time, biased as I may be since I am a St. Louis Cardinals fan, 2011 Game 6 was just, like, you talk about heart attacks, Nate, down to my last strike twice against, a Texas Rangers team that was just so dominant that year. But what I will say about Game 5 at least, because I think a general consensus has been that Game 5 was more entertaining than Game 2, and even after Game 2, we're like, how could it get even better than this?
Exactly.
With Game 5, my problem with Game 5 was that I saw really no quality pitching. And I think that in order to have a truly amazing baseball game, that you'll see impressive offensive production and impressive hitting, but also pitching that makes you say wow, and great pitching performances, either starting pitching or out of the bullpen or all of that. So for me, Game 5 may have been the greatest offensive game I've ever seen. However, I as a baseball fan and a person who appreciates, some may say, the art of pitching, we really didn't see much of that in Game 5.
Well, actually, under most circumstances, I would agree with you. Like, I would, 9 times out of 10, I will prefer a game that finishes 2-1 or 3-2 over like a 13-12 slugfest that we saw last night. But just given the circumstances, how was Game 5 of the World Series, and just you could tell from watching just the energy that was in the ballpark, the energy. Did you guys see the video of I think it was Correa, like jumping like over the dugout railing and like celebrating behind home plate?
Yeah, he did that at least like 5 times.
Yeah, like to me, it was just like the passion, the energy of the moment was just, it was something that I really had never seen before in a baseball game.
Definitely. So, Game 6, Los Angeles, Tuesday night, 5 p.m. on Fox. You guys can catch it there. We'll all most likely be watching all of it, if not some of it. And it's going to be an interesting rest of the series. All of our prior predictions that we had made at the start of the World Series still have a chance of coming true, with myself predicting that the Astros will win in 7, and that would mean that, to your point, Nate, Justin Verlander doesn't come through tonight. Matt, what was your prediction?
Los Angeles Dodgers, Aaron Rodgers,
Oh God.
Steve Rogers. Don't matter. Astros in 6.
And as Nate previously mentioned, he predicted Dodgers in 7. So, what a World Series, guys. It's going to be great to watch the rest of it. So, coming up next, we get to talk some hockey, some NHL, the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Who could have saw this coming? Matt did. We're going to recap exactly what has happened in Las Vegas and how this is really shaping the rest of the hockey landscape when we come back. Stay tuned, everyone.